It's bad. Locking the wall back here since 7 o'clock. My name is Jim Muehlbein. This is my wife Debbie. We're basically the Heritage Lake Election Committee. And what we typically do is work to do the elections for our board members each year. So this evening, I was asked if we would put together a little something to have an interview with 3 candidates here. So I'm kind of doing this pretty much the way we do meet the candidates for our board members. So first thing, if everybody's got a phone, please turn it off or turn the sound down or whatever, so we don't interrupt anybody. And I want to thank everybody for coming. We appreciate it. So I'm going to read a couple things. First of all, I want to introduce the 3 candidates. These are the Republican people running for the nomination of Sheriff of Putnam County. The election is May 3rd. You have Mr. Jared Ball, Mr. Steve Hibbler, nod your head, and Dwight Simmons. We appreciate you all coming and appreciate you being here. Heritage Lake for us is a pretty special place, and we want to keep it safe, so we're going to work on that tonight. So I'm going to sit down and read some stuff. Basically, this is going to be a quick overview of how this is going to go. The gentlemen up there have a copy of this as well. I'll put my glasses on so I can read it. What we're going to do first is we're going to draw a name from these envelopes of each of the candidates. Whoever name will be drawn will be the first one to answer a question, and then from that point on we'll go in alphabetical order. In your opening statements, we're going to ask you to stand up during that. The rest of the time during question and answer, please be seated. We're going to start with opening statements from each of the candidates. They'll have about 3 minutes to talk to us. We're going to ask you to talk about basically your personal life, things where you grew up, your family, whatever. We kind of like to get to know you on that basis first. And then we'll go into a question and answer period. And we'll have about 30 minutes to do that. I've devised some questions, and I'm solely responsible for them, if you like them or not. During this session, each candidate will answer the same question, and we'll start in whatever order we started. Once you have each answered the question, if one of you would like to have a response, a rebuttal, whatever you want to call it, or just another thought came to you during the discussion, please feel free to raise your hand and we'll recognize you and you can talk for another couple minutes. So basically, we're giving you 3 minutes for your opening statements. That's for when you're talking about your personal life. And then when we get in the question and answer period, each question's a little different, some are more complicated than others, so the time will be told to you at that point. Once we finish that question and answer period, which is, we're looking at about 30 minutes for that, we'll proceed to questions from the audience. If you have a question, raise your hand, be recognized. We ask that you keep the questions positive and that you direct the questions to all 3 candidates, not one particular one. So when you ask a question, they'll all have an opportunity to answer that for you. So that pretty much covers it. So if you want to pull up, let's do this first. Draw an envelope, please. I don't know what order they're in. Oops. Just go ahead and open that and read. Who is in there?
Dwight Simmons.
Okay. Dwight, you're up first. If you'll stand and talk a little bit about your background.
Thank you. I need to buy a lottery ticket because that's the second one in a row I've been here for. So. Good evening. Thanks for having us. I'm Dwight Simmons. I didn't know this was just going to be personal life here on this, so I have to revamp a little bit. I am 53 years old. I was born in 1969 in Franklin, Tennessee. Moved to Indiana when I was very young. I went to Decatur Central, graduated in '87, and was on delayed entry for the United States Army. Entered the United States Army, going to first Fort Benning, Georgia for training, where I would eventually be stationed in Fort Hood, Texas with 1st Cavalry Division. I did 2 years active, 6 inactive, and earn the GI Bill and College Fund. I would later attend Ivy Tech State College, and based on all the push-ups that I did for a couple of years, I earned an associate's degree in criminal justice and human services. My wife and I, Deborah, she is a 911 operator for Putnam County 911 for over 21 years. Together we have raised 7 children, 5 boys, 2 girls. I have the gray hair to prove it. But no, seriously, all have been great. I learned a lot over the last year and some odd months. This is a first for me of entering public office candidacy. I've learned that you have a huge support system when you enter this thing, whether it be friends, your law enforcement family, or your immediate family. So mine has been huge. Every member of our family has been to events and thoroughly engaged in this. My wife has been with me every step of the way, which I totally appreciate. With less than a minute left, there's actually this circulation that's been going around the county that Dwight doesn't really want to run for sheriff. The sheriff's making him. That's what I did too, Sheriff. But let me be clear, to have your family for well over a year go to events, and disrupt's a bad word, but as far as the family life's concerned, and to put them on this rigorous schedule that we're on, all for the sake of somebody making you want to do it is a bit ludicrous. So I just wanted to clear the air on that. I'm all in, and I'm enjoying this journey, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to lead this agency for the next 4 years. Thank you for having us.
Okay, Mr. Ball, you're next.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jared Ball, and introduce myself to you. Personal information is that I was born in Greencastle on August 27th of 1970 at the old hospital, which is now an apartment complex. Went to Jones School Elementary, moved into the jail when I was 4 years old. My father was elected sheriff. Continued to go to Jones School while I was there. Some of the cool things that happened while we were in the jail was I learned to make water balloons out of Ziploc baggies and throw them on the JCPenney ladies as they walked by on their way to the work, which didn't pan out very good for me. But the experience there also taught me something very important, and that is the people that are in jail can be an asset to your family. There was a lady that was in the individual cell there that taught me how to play chess at a young age, and that I thought was very interesting. My father trusted her enough to let me go up there with her and go from there. So very interesting time living there at the jail and living through the blizzard of '78. That was an interesting time to watch a leadership role that the sheriff takes on. And they have to be connected to their community and be prepared to call on those people to help them through emergency situations like that. As personal information from after we got done being at the jail for 8 years, we moved to South Putnam, where I went to high school, played football on the state championship team there. Went to Ball State University for criminal justice and criminology, where I met my first wife, Tara Ball, so she's still in the room here and still 27 years married to her. We actually got a ride back, so she lived on Saddle Club Road, and I lived down by the penitentiary, and we met on a ride back to Ball State, so interesting little tidbit there. After finishing a criminal justice degree up at Ball State, moved back to Putnam County and set roots here for sure. My wife's been teaching at Cloverdale for 27 years as a kindergarten teacher. I have one daughter, her name is Gail Ball. She was an in vitro baby, right? They put 3 in, and anybody who knows Gail Ball will tell you that she kicked the other 2 out for sure, so for the attention. But she's the love of our life, and there's 3 women in my life, and they all have the last name of Ball, so it's pretty important to me. But personally, I have 2 dogs. I have a Karen Terrier named Iggy, and I have a Schnauzer named Milo, and I love hunting. I don't own a boat, never owned a boat, apologize about that up here, but have my motorcycles and my Jeeps and lots of things like that. So love Putnam County, love to be on the fair board here, it's personal to me, 10-year 4-H member, and things like that. So I look forward to speaking with you tonight and give you even more information about me and more into the law enforcement career. Thank you.
Mr. Hibbler.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Steve Hibbler. I'm the elder statesman of the group. I'm the old guy. I was born March 14, 1961. Like Dwight, I'm a Decatur Central graduate. I grew up on the southwest side of Indianapolis on my family farm that's been our family for like 175 years. Still have today Hilltop Farms Equine Center. We're known for the Budweiser Clydesdales stay there when they come through Indiana, so it's kind of cool. Got about 65 horses there. Didn't have horses growing up though. I was in 4-H also 10 years. I showed sheep, hogs, and did all kinds of things in 4-H. When I graduated Decatur Central, I went to work for the Indiana State Police as a civilian employee, but we'll get into the law enforcement bit in a little bit. But I had a dual career, so I went also into the Indiana National Guard and started my climb there. Went to Oakland City University. I've got a bachelor's degree in human resources from Oakland City. I have a master's degree in the management of human resources from Oakland City University, and I have a second master's degree from the U.S. Army War College in strategic studies. And I've also got a certificate from Northwestern Police Staff and Command in leadership there. I was in athletics at Decatur Central. I carried that in through with my military years. Ultimately ended up out at Bainbridge because I became a trooper in '83 and got to know Putnam County, and I've been in and out of Putnam County since 1983, and made home just south of North Putnam High School for a good while. In 1996, I started coaching up at North Put. In fact, one of my first athletes I coached is sitting right there in front of me, Ronnie Campbell. But I was the assistant varsity track and cross country coach, and then the assistant varsity boys basketball coach for a number of years from '97 to 2003. So I've made her home there. Currently, I'm living in Greencastle, Indiana. I'm married to my wife, Deborah, and our daughter, Alexis. I actually have 8 kids, so that's why I have no hair. But my wife and our 16-year-old daughter, Alexis, we live in Greencastle. We homeschool her. My wife is an online college professor for American University. That's where tonight she's on an online thing. So very supportive of the campaign and very supportive of everything we've done, my military and my law enforcement career. Do a lot of stuff out in the community here. I've taught an active citizens class. I'm very passionate about the Constitution. People have their different, hobbies and stuff. Mine has been like educating and teaching people and working. I've graduated 600 people through a Citizens Academy that I've run down through Cloverdale, and also doing a lot of firearms instruction and that kind of stuff to try to help people learn and understand about the Second Amendment. Very passionate about the Second Amendment and your citizens' rights. So I've done a lot of stuff with that. Look forward to being able to get the opportunity, if you so choose, me to be your sheriff and serve you for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go any further, ladies like to come in and sit down? Yeah, come on in.
Don't put us out or anything.
Did you pay to get in?
Not yet.
3 minutes. Okay. Nope. Yeah, it's 4 minutes. Okay. If you want to open up your number 1, I've put the questions in front of them. I'm going to read them out loud as well, just so that they, once they get started, sometimes if you're the third person in line, by the time it comes to you, you forgot what the question was. At least you do when you're my age. First question basically says this. You guys all have a lot of years of law enforcement experience. The question, please describe your background in law enforcement with 1, the number of years you held specific positions in the past and the position's responsibilities. 2, how long have you been in your current position with details of your current position's responsibilities. And finally, 3, any goals you may have for future personal development. You have up to 4 minutes to respond. And Dwight, you go first.
Thank you. I'm in my 24th year of the Sheriff's Office. It's the only law enforcement agency I've worked with I began my career with Putnam County Sheriff's Office in 1998. I initially entered as a reserve deputy, where I would be hired on as a merit and then attend the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy. Early in my career, approximately late 2004, I was certified with my first canine dual-purpose German Shepherd named Effie. Unfortunately, his life was cut short to cancer in early '05, so I obtained a second canine. His name was Deuce, and we were off and running. And been heavily involved in drug enforcement my entire career. Worked night shifts for 15 plus years. In 2008, was promoted to lieutenant overnight shift and was supervisor of several other deputies. Canine Deuce was then rotated to another deputy, and I would later get my third canine, who was a yellow lab, and his name was Bo. And I worked with that dog up until his death in April of 2020. So I've enjoyed my tenure as a handler. It's been a huge passion of mine. I would like to see us, explore adding a third dog. Currently, we still just have two at the agency. In 2016, I was appointed major with the title of operations commander, simply meaning I am in charge of enforcement division to include investigations, courthouse security, animal care and control. Obviously, the plus with that is I can go out there and check in with the guys and play with the dogs. So it's a great job to have. Every day is different. Never knowing exactly what you're going to be doing. As Chief Sutherland and I spoke before this thing today, or a while ago, that today was a crazy day on calls. It could be pretty non-eventful, and you can be proactive, or you can be running all over the county, which was today what happened. So we have a huge amount of responsibility at the sheriff's office with obligations to the jail and the courts. At any given time, there may be court orders to serve. There may be protective orders to serve. There are just a lot of moving parts to the agency. So knowing, having that background and that experience, and at the same time, what it boils down to is enjoying being a deputy every day. So my absolute best days are when I don't have a lot of administrative tasks to take care of at the sheriff's office. I'd much rather be in the field with the guys. As far as personal development, I would hope that would start with sheriff's school later in the fall. I guess we'll see on that. But development is every day at this agency. With education, I don't think there comes any substitute for what you get for actually on the job training, and I enjoy every bit of it. And I think that's all I've got, Jim. Thank you.
Thanks. Jared, it's your turn.
So, chronological order of my experience in law enforcement started at the end of, actually while I was in college. At Ball State University, I was a reserve at Cloverdale Police Department. Went through pre-basic down there, enjoyed many hours down there, meeting a lot of the local officers, learning from them, not only the things that I'd learned from my father, countless hours of riding with him, but also going there. From there, I worked at the Department of Corrections in Plainfield, so I learned a lot there in the year that I was there before finally getting a job with the Indiana State Excise Police in 1995. I said along the campaign because it's true, and it really gets down to the core of setting up here, and that was in 1995 they called and offered me a job with the Indiana State Excise Police, which is, at the time that I was hired there, our rulers that we handed out to State Fair said law enforcement's best kept secret. Well, that changed about halfway through my career with the introduction of a uniform that we used to do 9 code violations and pull over cars on college campuses as part of a national grant. So the things changed quite a bit. But I started with the Excise Police in 1995 and worked my way up to a supervisory role with them about 15 years ago. Along that career with the Indiana State Excise Police, it was very interesting compared to growing up at home with a uniform officer who hung up his uniform the night before every shift and put the pins on and the buttons, and hours riding with him. And that was, you went out immediately from the academy and you went to detective school. A lot of officers worked the road for 10 years and then became detectives and we went there within the first year, and I had to make plaster cast of shoe prints, and I have no idea why, except for I guess who was sneaking up on the stills that we were busting, making liquor. So the Excise Police was an enforcement division of the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Gaming, and it's a really interesting job for that. Law enforcement wise, and what it's taught me that I'll bring with it to the Sheriff's Department is twofold. One, as a field supervisor, I have a lot of responsibilities, and that's training and mentoring young officers, whether it be, through life in general, can come at you pretty fast, but also through the regulations and SOPs. In that role as a supervisor and on our agency, and also as a master instructor for our agency, especially with firearms, I've written a lot of SOPs, standard operating procedures. It's the Bible and the rules that the officers act by. I've written for several other agencies. Not only have I trained my own agency, I've trained with every agency in Putnam County and the 17 counties that I serve. I often go to their training events or get asked to come in and teach their officers not only alcohol rules and regulations, but work with their firearms program. So it's been really interesting along the way. What's prepared me to be the sheriff of Putnam County is these roles that I've done at the Indiana State Excise Police. And that is evaluations of officers, filling those out every year, approving timesheets. Things like that are a day-to-day in a management role. Not only that, but I was trained through Indiana's Police Executive Leadership Academy, which is a month-long class where you get to not only work on budgets and how agencies use budgets. We did some training the other day and how to do press releases and how to do press events, different things like that along the way that they see as a young supervisor that they send you to, and when you're there, you're just checking the time for lunch. Maybe it's me. But you pick up a lot of interesting things along the way. So between the field activity of 15 years of supervision with the Excise Police and with the training that I've received through the Leadership Academy and different things, working with all these agencies is important for the sheriff. That's one of the things that I've done mandatory, working with these other agencies that prepared me to work with all the agencies in Putnam County.
Thank you, sir. Get that started. Okay, Mr. Hibbler, it's your turn.
Well, I've spent the last 4 decades in law enforcement. If you think about that, it's a long time. I started with the Indiana State Police. There were 5,000 applicants for 60 positions in 1983, and I was very fortunate to be selected and go into the Indiana State Police Academy. I came out and I was equally as blessed to get my first duty assignment was the Putnamville Post, and it was the old post, not the new post. And I worked Putnam and Morgan counties, and I spent the first 10 years working the road as a state trooper, taking crashes, going out investigating crimes, doing all those things that you start building your building block of tools for your toolbox of what to do. It was also during that time I got selected onto the Indiana State Police Emergency Response Team. I got to spend 10 years in that capacity where I went on SWAT calls. I had over 200 actual SWAT operations. I was trained, not only did I have an FBI SWAT certificate, state police SWAT certificate, I was trained by LAPD SWAT. We even had the British SAS come in and teach us on automatic weapons. And so I have quite a bit of experience in the tactical aspect of things. At the same time, I was a military policeman, so I'm getting my training as an MP. So it's kind of a dual career as I went through, and I started working up my way in the rank with the military to staff sergeant before they sent me to OCS, and I got commissioned as a lieutenant. Then I worked my way up through the ranks there. On the state police side of things, I worked 10 years, and then I became an operations sergeant at the state command headquarters at the state office building. Went back to the same operations center I started as a clerk when I was 18 years old. I'm back there now as a sergeant. There were 6 sergeants at the time that worked the State Command Center for the superintendent, and we always said we were the eyes, ears, and hidden hand of the superintendent. We covered that 24/7, and we had oversight on all, at that time, 19 Indiana State Police districts around the state, where we could, provide timely information to the superintendent for command decisions. While I was up there, I got selected to be a community policing sergeant. They had 5 new squads around the state, bringing back the old way of doing business, which was community policing. And I was very fortunate. I got trained in that. I ended up being the primary instructor for community policing. Came back and taught throughout, not only from the academy, but I worked with different agencies across the central band of the state. On September 11, 2001, I was promoted to first sergeant at the Putnamville Post. Interesting day. My lieutenant was bear hunting up in Michigan, and I was told by my area captain, go to Putnamville and take command of the post. And we handled so many calls that particular day. I actually just left North Putt High School when I got the call. So I've worked up, and I've had a pretty long time with the Indiana State Police. Then I went on active duty with the military. I'd gone to Bosnia, went down to Katrina. I was in charge of all law enforcement for the recovery in Katrina. And then I went to Iraq. I was chief of staff of a military police brigade over all detention in Iraq. I had 25,000 detainees. I took a 5,000-man task force over there, and I had 67 missions outside of the wire. Came back, stayed on active duty with the Guard as the chief of operations for the Indiana Guard. Went to Ball State as professor of military science for 3.5 years. Then I went on out to Red Lodge, Montana. I spent 2 years out there as a police chief. My family, my wife stayed back here after 2 years. I came back to Indiana. And I came back, Sheriff Stockton hired me to come in as his jail commander, and I took over command of the jail before Cloverdale came up. In the last 5 years, I've been down in Cloverdale, redoing the police department down there. And if you all saw last week, we had a pretty good arrest down there, almost $100,000 worth of illegal drugs we took off the street. So been active down there building a department. We run over 4,000 calls for service each year. And as Dwight and Jared both said, we continually are improving on this job. Doesn't matter if you've got 24 years or you got 40 years, you're continuing every day learning and improving your position. A lot of new stuff is coming out every day, and you got to stay on top of it.
Okay, thanks. Does anybody want to say anything else as a response? No? Okay, we'll move to number 2. Being in control of a department, whether it be in the corporate world or in public service, requires an expertise in many areas to be an effective leader. These areas of expertise may include finance, personnel, operations, public speaking, etc. Question: please tell us what specific background experience, educational/training, or even personal attributes that you feel you possess that will support your effort in becoming a fair and effective sheriff. You have up to 3 minutes to respond. I guess it's back to you.
Thank you. Great question. I'm not sure 3 minutes is enough, so I'll start with finance. As far as our agency is concerned, we have a huge budget. It's actually the largest one in the county at $4.5 million. We got the jail side is 1.8, the enforcement side is 2.7. So it's a large budget to manage, but I'm very, very familiar with it. I'm familiar with the line items within. I've attended budget meetings at our agency over the years. I've attended budget hearings with the county council, and I have zero issue with being fiscally responsible with taxpayers' money especially. So no issues there. Personnel, I think it's somewhat of an advantage to be with this agency already in a supervisory role and understand have the intimate knowledge of every deputy, officers that work in the jail, officers that are assigned to other areas, and to know their strengths and their weaknesses. We exploit the strengths. We all have weaknesses, so it's something we all have to work on. But I just think it's a huge advantage to know every one of them as well as their families. The education, I think I touched on earlier, but it's every day. It's never ending. You could have multiple degrees, $1 million in training, but I think the 24-year education that I'm still involved with right now has served me well and will continue to. So I think that's another great advantage at this agency. As far as attributes for a sheriff's candidate or a sheriff, I would say a couple of words off the top of my head, or honesty and integrity. And I know what I would want in a sheriff. It's somebody that's, forgive my directness, not a lying politician. I'm pretty direct, sorry. But somebody that searches for the truth when that's what's asked of them, instead of making up an answer. I think we owe that to the public, not just as law enforcement officers, but especially as leaders. And I think at the end of the day, if we surround ourselves with good, competent people that and take care of them, have their backs, I think they'll take care of you, and in return, I think the citizens are the ones that reap the benefits. Thank you.
Mr. Ball, your turn.
Thank you. Expertise or experience. Expertise is an interesting way of saying it, but I think experience, because we're always learning, like he said. About the time you're an expert in something, you probably are about to wreck that motorcycle, or you're about to do something. So I'd like to say it's a continued education aspect in it. But experience is something that we'll talk about. Finances wise, not only have I worked with the Fair Board for 10 years on their budget and handling different issues with it, I've been trained in the budgetary aspect of it with the police executive leadership. We went through and started with zero budgets, worked through each one, had changes made, and even did case scenarios where you requested more, how to properly request the funding. Just asking for money is one thing, but explaining why you need it is another. And I think that's very important when it comes to finances and trustworthy, and when it comes to budgeting. Trustworthiness with those finances is very important, and one of the greatest honors that I've had is serving as the president of the Fraternal Order of Police for 20 years in Putnam County. One of the things that we do there is we call on the citizens to make donations. And over those 20 years, I've handled almost $1 million in citizens of Putnam County's money. They gave it to us. And the trustworthiness that we've had, and I've led that organization, and the trust in the treasurers and the vice president being Tom Sutherland, who's going to be my chief deputy and will make a very trustworthy experience when it comes to budgets there. But when people would call and they would tell, or people that would call and ask for funds would report back that people would have a validity question for him. Okay, well, who's on the FOP? And they said, well, the president's Jared Ball and the vice president's Tom Sutherland. And my people that were making the call said that those people would then give money after they heard that. That makes me feel good, and I will continue that as the sheriff of Putnam County in being trustworthy with the finances of the county. When it comes to personnel issues, and experience with it, I kind of touched on it earlier there, but I want to take a little bit deeper dive into it. And that is the mentoring aspect. When you go in to an agency, I think it's very important to touch base with these officers, get their trust, and work with them to benefit not only their career, but their professional career, but their personal career. And there again, you got to earn their trust and work with them on that. And I've had lots of experience with that, not only in my job as the Indiana State Excise Police and as a supervisor there, but also as that position working with the Fraternal Order of Police. I bring it up because it was a labor of love. That's stuff you do off duty. What'd you do for Putnam County off duty? I mean, that's important to me. And one of the things is that I'll bring to that is the people I've worked with in the county.
Okay, finally, Mr. Hibbler.
When it comes to law enforcement, I've said this before, it's both an art and a science. The science part you learn through schools, training, certificates, recertifications, specialized certifications and such. The art part's learned through years of doing it. And when we talk and take a look back over the last 40 years that I've been doing this, I've been with the Indiana State Police. I was the assistant district commander of the Putnamville Post. We had 45 troopers at the time and 15 civilian employees. Had to supervise every aspect of that, from pay, overtime, to discipline issues, to the hiring, firing, promotions, all those things. took that same thing with me throughout the military as far as supervision went. When I went out, I was a police chief out in Montana, had a small department, had a huge budget. We did those things. Came back here and I was with the sheriff's department. I was the jail commander. In fact, I've been the jail commander to the point that that's one of the base expenses within the sheriff's department. When you take into consideration a 155 bed jail, you take into consideration all the medical requirements, the food, the bedding, the clothing, all those things that have to take into account. Been there and I've done that. Probably the most challenging thing is when I went to Cloverdale, because I've now gone down to an agency that's got a $300,000 budget. It's fairly easy when you want to do a $4 million budget or a $5 million budget, whatever. When you take a $300,000 budget and you're trying to make things work with salary and pay, and then you start figuring out, do I buy bullets or do I buy copy paper? So we had to find some very creative ways and different ways, and the community actually stepped up. And this past year, the community supports the police department so well, they raised $25,000 for the police department that we could use to do some of those things that we haven't been able to do. So when I look back over that time, that art part, that part of actually doing the job and that experience that I've gained over the last 40 years, it keeps adding to my toolbox. And I learn new things each and every day, building those partnerships. When you're talking about the personal piece of it, the human resources we have are the most vital, most valuable parts that we've got. And trying to give them the opportunities to excel. Everybody wants to excel at work. And a lot of times you've just got to give them direction, give them that command guidance and intent, and turn them loose and let them go do their job. And that's one of the things in a lot of cases that hasn't been done in a lot of agencies, where they maybe micromanage or don't point them in the right direction. We've been very effective down in Cloverdale. In the last year, we've targeted drug dealers. We've been going hard after drug dealers. We've got 19 different people connected with the drug business off the streets in the last year. One just last week. We've got 3 drug dealers that are sitting in the jail from December that we put in jail. So these are things that I know, as a sheriff, I want to see done. Everybody, we've been all over the county, has said there's a drug problem. We want to try to solve that problem.
Before I'm trying to run the clock here. We're going to have a little forum period for questions from the field. Can I see a raise of hands of anybody who might want to ask a question at that time, so I see what the numbers are? So we got about 3 or 4. Okay. We'll go ahead and move to number 3 then. Okay.
Not yet.
Not quite yet, but I just wanted to do the numbers so we had time for this out here.
Can I have just a really quick rebuttal?
Yes, absolutely.
Just on the drug thing, I've heard a radio ad last, it wasn't an ad, we answered some questions for radio station WREB. I wanted to clarify that Putnam County Sheriff's Office is also proactive. Something that bothered me a little bit was that another department in the county was alleged to be the only proactive agency. I assure you, you can look at my Facebook page, or you can look at Putnam County Sheriff Office Indiana Facebook page, and you can go back as far as you can. I assure you, you're going to see proactivity on that. That's all I got.
Go ahead.
So, on mine, on the time operations. I want to talk about operations for a little bit because it asks about expertise. I don't like the word experience. Let's talk about what I bring to the Putnam County Sheriff's Department. I mentioned about a lot of programs that I'm interested in, but that is what I do. I build teams, I build programs, and I've built them in Putnam County, whether it be with the Fraternal Order of Police, the 4-H Shooting Supports Program, church safety teams. These are things that I do. So when we talk about expertise or experience in operations, I want to go over a couple of things. And that is when I bring up a process or a program that I'm interested in doing, I've got a lot of experience. I've got a lot of experience writing grants, finding money, getting people to agree to do things. One of the things that happened was this young man came to me from DePaul University and said he wanted to start a trap and ski club. I said, do you know where you're at? You're in Greencastle at a university that is a liberal arts school. Are you sure you want to do that? And he said, I do. And then for 10 years, we had a trap and skeet club because I helped him mentor him through grant writing and getting that program going. And that's what we do, is that we build programs and we get it funded through grants. That's one of the things I look forward to bringing to the Putnam County Sheriff's Department and passing on to the next generation that I leave behind there, is how to get those programs done and be connected to your community by not only finding those issues, finding the programs for them and finding the money, because the kids shoot 25,000 rounds a year and don't pay a dime at the 4-H shooting sports. So thank you for your time.
All right. No more comments? We'll move to number 3. This one's kind of a personal question from me, and it has a lot to do with Heritage Lake. Based on our monthly security reports presented at our monthly POA board meetings, it would appear that the Heritage Lake community might have one of the lowest crime rates in the county. There could be many reasons for this, but we feel that we know the greatest contributing factor. Over various time periods, our Heritage Lake community has been lucky to have had a Putnam County deputy living among us. We currently have various law enforcement officers that live here with their official cars parked in their driveways. Although we may not be within their jurisdiction, their visible presence could be a deterrent to potential mischief. For the past 7 years, we've had not only a deputy, but a deputy that is also our property manager. In his position as property manager, he has gotten to know many of our members much better than anyone from outside ever could. Because of these relationships and his position in the community, he can respond quickly and effectively. He can diffuse issues before they become a problem. This helps us to feel safe. Our deputy property manager, Ken Roselle, has always had our back. I'll let you know he did not know I was going to ask this. The question, first, do you agree that the Heritage Lake community is indeed a low crime community, and what do you think are the contributing factors for this? Second, how will you work to retain this status? And finally, since we have confidence in and appreciation for Ken Roselle, if elected, would you commit to keeping Ken in our backyard and have his back? 3 minutes. Mr. Simmons.
Thank you. I do agree that it's a low-crime community. I think the way, simply based on how this community is set up, I believe from memory, when I lived in Jefferson Valley 20-plus years ago, 25 years ago, I was a resident at Heritage Lake for 8-plus years. 3,000-plus lots at this lake, and over half are built on, I believe. So you got some close neighbors in a lot of these, and I'm not going to say nosy neighbors, but I'm sure there are in some places. But, you know, it's good to have a nosy neighbor as it pertains to crime. So I think that helps. You know, we typically encounter property crimes out in mainly rural areas, and there's a good reason for that, because there's a lot of property in one house, and it's an easy target. So you get into populated neighborhoods, it's a little tougher for them. So that alone is going to help with the crime. As far as having Mr. Roselle up here, it's huge. You know, the response times is the first thing I can think of off the top of my head. I know he oftentimes will answer up on the radio when there's a call put out up here, or even in a neighboring area. So we'll still have deputies en route. He may or may not disregard them. The fact that there's a car parked up here at all times, just physical presence alone is deterrent for crime. It's deterrent for crashes. It's deterrent for speeders. So all across the board. So I absolutely would continue that trend. I know when I did live up here, I was initially reserve, and I worked a lot under the late Ron Barger. I worked both on the road security and as well as on the water, and it was nice having that accessibility to a vehicle, and we had several up here even back then. That was a long time ago. So I know we've had deputies in the past that have lived here, full-time deputies, and so again, just on response times alone, it's a great resource to have somebody when the call comes out. If we could strategically put a deputy in in every township, and they live there, obviously it's going to improve on response time. So I would no doubt be in support of that, and would love to even get a second car if we could. Thanks.
Mr. Ball.
Man, heck no, we're not gonna get rid of Ken Rozelle. After that, that's a half a page. Known Ken a long time, and just like with the process that when the sheriff came in, any officers that aren't merit will go through the rehire process, just like he did. I'll review his process that he used to go back through, reserve type non-merit positions and go through those, but I have no reason to believe why they wouldn't. It's a valued asset, just like I believe a valued asset for this area will be one of my programs that I want to work on. One of the programs that I have is a Community Connections program. So officers in some areas may have quotas. Some state police officers, the rumor is that they used to have quotas or incentives for ticket writing and things like that. One of the things that I want to do, and I think the Heritage Lake will benefit from greatly, is that at your POA meetings, I believe you only have a monthly membership meeting, is that correct? So there will be a merit deputy here at all of those. If there's not a turnover on the interstate or anything else, I spoke with some people about that when I had a meet and greet up here, and that's one of the things that I want to do is get the connection there. And here's why. Not only are they a subject matter expert in the area, but they will be gathering information and bringing it from the jail or from the sheriff's department to the meeting. Staffing at the jail continues to be an issue. Everybody is for staffing. And if in a POA meeting you have a merit deputy there and they go around the room, just like we'll have one at every fair board meeting, except for the election night, that's kind of boring. But at the others. And so when they open the floor up, is there anything? That merit officer then can tell everybody that they're looking to hire a new jailer. Do you know of anybody? And there may be a connection made at that time. That's what I'm talking about, those community connections. So I think that one of the things that I'm going to institute is that connection. And that is so important to me because that's what I saw my father do. One of the great benefits that I've had along this campaign trail is my 20-year-old daughter has been going with us to different campaign events. And I will tell you this, and it's very important because we're talking about this. Ken Rozelle is connected to this community. My father was connected to this community in a whole as the county. When we go to these events, she was 2 years old when he passed away, but at least a dozen people or more have came up to me and said, I need to tell you about a story about your dad, what he did for me that night, or what he did for my family that night, or how he talked to my son because there wasn't a father in the home, and I appreciated the way he did that. And that was being connected to his community. She's got to hear that. Okay, and that's exactly what I want to see as a priority of mine. And I will have a merit deputy, unless they're all on vehicle accidents, on rollovers, or on calls, and that can happen. But it's going to be a priority of a team app, right? That these are the things that the chief deputy, Tom Sutherland, and I want them to be at. Somebody write your name in and go there. And if you want sergeant stripes on your arm, you're probably going to earn them.
Time for your commitment, Mr. Hibbler.
You sure? Yeah, first of all, I do think Heritage Lake is a safe community. And I attribute that, yes, to Ken's presence up here, and the officers present. The deputies do a good job coming up to the lake. Also, I've got to give kudos. I think April Land, she's back in the Crime Watch program here because, community policing is all about the community working with law enforcement. And I think, I want to, it's one of my initiatives. I want to be able to work with them and do a little better job with that whole Crime Watch thing and try to get that going. I also agree with the meetings coming up here, but the only thing I'll change the course on is it won't be a deputy. It'll be, I've got Tony Portwood sitting over, will be my chief deputy, 37-year member of the Indiana State Police. One of the two of us will be at that meeting. So we can take that information back and we'll figure out how to source things and help solve problems. And we're the decision making there, and we'll make sure that we're engaged in that whole process. Yeah, Ken is a valuable asset up here. I've known Ken. We probably go back 20 plus years. Our kids went to school together, and he's been an integral part of this community up here for quite some time. So does a lot of good work. One of the things I'd like to see, and I know I've talked to Ken about, is we want to see the reserves expand. And I'd like to get some reserves up here on the lake. We got a lot of police officers up here, a lot of prior military that we could tap on and try to get them to that 40-hour pre-basic and get some people up here and get another car up here at the lake so we've got presence. You find out when you talk community policing, Sir Robert Peel was the father of modern policing. He said the police are the public and the public are the police. The police are members of the public who are paid to give full-time attention, what's incumbent upon all of us for the safety and security of our communities. And when you look at that sense, that officer presence up here helps deter crime in any of our communities. And we're going to take an approach around the entire county and take a look at what needs to be approached into the various communities. They all have got different needs and wants, and figure out how to prioritize that. So I think it's going to be very important to help keep that going up here and see how we can improve on that. And we take suggestions from the citizens. We get a lot of suggestions down in Cloverdale from our citizens on how we can enforce and improve the way we're serving them. Because you all have a voice in this thing. It's really not about the three of us sitting up here. Y'all realize that. It's about the voters. It's about the citizens and getting your best representation to serve you the way that you want to see law enforcement serve you.
Thank you. So who wants to raise a hand? And Jim, since I know you.
Jefferson Valley 110. As a sheriff, you have to get along with the prosecutor. I think all three of you guys are super great, but you still have to get along with the prosecutor. So is there a working relationship there with you guys that would work? And I take it you all live in Greencastle. Your hometown now is Greencastle. That'll be all.
Let's keep these to 1 minute, okay?
Same order?
Yeah.
Okay. Any agency has to have a working relationship with the prosecutor's office. I will fully admit at times, over the years, I'm not pointing any fingers, there's been politics at play. Anytime you have elected officials, I don't know if it's an alpha thing. I've never been in the position of being an elected official. I hope one day I will. But, I know early on in my career, there was a time where if it was time to draft a search warrant, they were at our office helping. So I think the relationship could improve some, whether it's a give and take situation. I know that if elected, one of the first places I'm going is the courthouse. The people that suffer from not having a great relationship are not just you citizens, but it's every officer on that agency, which in turn the citizens suffer. So I think it could improve, no doubt. Yes, I'd like to see that.
Mr. Ball?
Great question. I have a Greencastle address, but about 4 miles from Bell Union, Indiana. So, working relationship with the current prosecutor. I have a really good working relationship with the current prosecutor in Putnam County, working with him for 27 years, along with 17 other prosecutors all at the same time. Working in the district that I do, so I've got some pretty good communication skills to find out what they want, and they're the lead law enforcement officer. If you look at the hierarchy in Indiana state statute, the top law enforcement officer in the county is the prosecutor. So you got to go start to kiss the ring, right? But it really is. But my working relationship with Tim Bookwalter is that I've been an expert witness for him in murder cases and attempted murder on police officers, one of our sheriff's deputies. I've given expert testimony when it comes to firearms. I've done a lot of testing in murder cases of firearms. The most recent one that ended up with a conviction that they pled guilty to after doing some testing for it. So I've got a good working relationship with our current Putnam County prosecutor, and look forward to working with him in the future.
Mr. Hibbler?
Sure. Yes, and I do live in Greencastle now. I do have a great working relationship with Tim Bookwalter, as well as all the deputy prosecutors. He's actually been very active in working with us on the drug investigation we've done down in Cloverdale, and several other cases we've worked down in that area. We'll continue that. It's a vital piece of the whole criminal justice system, and whether it's getting a search warrant, wrapped it up, or an arrest warrant, they've been great at helping us and working with us on that. So I don't see any issues there whatsoever.
Another question from somebody? Yeah.
Yeah, better stand up as sure as I am, you wouldn't even see me. Name is Joe Brosnan, I am a resident out here at the lake. I only have one question, if it would be all right, if you wouldn't prefer not to answer. I respect that, but it's just a personal question. Do you think you'd welcome that? Just one personal
As
question.
long as it's directed to all three of them.
I'm sorry?
As long as it's
It
directed
would
to all three of
direct,
them.
yes, to all
Okay.
three. If you prefer not to answer, I respect that.
Does it have anything to do with medications, or? I believe there would be a HIPAA violation.
I don't think I'm
That's pretty
in
personal.
that range.
Go ahead, Joe.
All right, sir. Well, I noticed that you are all family men, which seems to be good family people. The country's kind of spiraling down. I think you can all agree to that, about everybody here see that. And so I do have a pretty important question. It has to do with children. I just wanted to know how you would look at things, particularly in the correction of children. So my question would be, what do you think of corporal punishment with your children? That's just part of the correction. I'm sure you would correct your children somehow, because you seem to be in that line. But the question would really be, today, seems to me like it's pretty much pro put somebody in jail, they're gonna correct their children carpooling. What I'm saying is,
I don't know if that's a
This is
win-win
my
question
daughter
for
right
any
here.
of you.
and I don't think, this is what, and I don't think she would say I'm really a bad guy. I mean, if anybody I can find a friend, I got one right here. So I don't think you could hardly look at me and think I'm really bad. But I'll tell you what, I'm very interested in correction. I'm just saying that because I know my history. But if I didn't have some correction, good thing I got caught a few times, because I wasn't going too straight. But my point is this, I understand children are children, and they need to be very much loved. But there's such a thing as correction. And from what I've gathered in my almost 85 years in this earth, if you don't have correction, you're gone, you're out. It might heal. You might last for a while, but you're gone.
Okay,
We need correction.
all right, thank
And when I
you.
say correction, I'm talking about right correction according to, just put it this way, we've got a constitution here in the United States. Let's just follow that constitution. I know you might say, well, you're pointing in a biblical way. Yeah. But I'll go by this constitution. I think we could be glad if we do.
What
So
happened?
I'd just like to know if you would respond to that, what you might think about that.
I'll leave it up to you guys. If you want to
Joe, can I
respond.
get clarification? Are you asking me if I beat my kids? Or,
Their answer is yes, your answer is no.
right. There's several of them,
Absolutely not.
there's several of them in the room tonight. So,
Don't lie, you're getting caught.
when I went to school, the paddle was still in full effect, okay?
I had one that hit hold about this.
Yes, sir, I did too. And I deserved the few that I got except one. It wasn't my fault. And I tell the families all the time, if I find that kid, we're gonna have a chat. He got me in trouble for making noise in the bathroom, blaming it on me, but anyway. Yeah, I think it's a fine line, if you're asking, why can't parents correct their children without getting in trouble? I think you can. But I think, you have to be careful with how far you go. There's a line you can cross. I probably got my bottom tan in the grocery store as a little kid by mom. There was 4 boys and no girls, if you can imagine. Her hand was probably sore. But I think this day and age, things have changed. You're absolutely correct. I'm not saying it's for the better. I think corrections at home are easily made, more so than out in the public because everybody's watching. Don't take that the wrong way. Man, I just went down a rabbit hole here. I probably ain't gonna get out of it.
So,
Yeah. So let me wrap this up by saying,
you're welcome.
you can just, don't cross the line. You know, I believe in raising our kids the right way, and I also had a granny that make me go out and pull the own switch off the bush and use it on me. But times have changed.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
Because that's just about the right one I'm talking about, okay?
Yeah.
But this way we're going today, and I think you know your call, you would have said what you said. So that is my big question. What are we gonna do?
Anybody else?
We gonna live this way and let these children?
You want us in order?
Let's do it. So we have a good system in place. We got judges in Putnam County that are born and raised here, and they make good, solid decisions up there. They know the difference between correction and beating a child. We have Child Protective Services. That is a constant job. It's a very difficult job. If you want to learn what a very difficult job is, go work for them for a little bit and make call balls and strikes. But everybody's doing their job. We have officers that know the difference in the field too of going into the house in Cloverdale that was unfortunate years ago with a key lock on both sides of the door and a 5-gallon bucket to use the restroom in. There's some bad days, you know, in this job, the things we have to see. But there's a big difference, and we're all good, I think. Everybody up here is
We're all on, I mean,
it's good.
we can pretty well discern, you know, if it's something that's crossed the line. And we consult with DCS. Probably, if anything, I would say the bigger concern, you know, in law enforcement is the parents who aren't doing anything for the kids. And they leave that to us.
My big reference is.
What's that?
That's really, sir, that's where my big reference is.
Well, and
that type of thing.
Yeah, I understand that. So in law enforcement, we're a little more concerned when you've got the ones who just let the kids run and don't do anything. And that is a problem where they look to either law enforcement or the schools to raise the kids. And we're trying to get, you know, more people actively engaged and involved in raising their kids and setting those disciplinary right and left boundaries. Kids got to have boundaries.
See more lack
They
of
don't have any
discipline.
corrections, they're gonna have any boundaries.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you, sir, I appreciate your answer.
I promise you guys will be out of here in an hour. So do you want to take one more question and go to closing statements, or should we? I'm leaving it up to you guys. One more, maybe? Maybe. Oh, we got one in the back too. Hang on a sec.
Get two.
Make them quick.
All right. What programs are currently in the jail to help prevent recidivism? And what other programs do you support that you might add to reduce recidivism?
So we've had a number of programs in that jail for many years now, AA, NA, MRT, moral recognition therapy, Bible study. We have lately a gentleman by the name of Eric Rippey who heads up Recovery Raw, and they meet on a weekly basis. They're going to make visits to the jail. So anything that we can do to cut down recidivism, because studies have shown, our stats have shown, it absolutely does. Sure, people fall off the wagon, but you know, the more programs we get, the better off they are. The judges have done a great job in this county, both judges, of anybody incarcerated for a meth offense, which is still the drug of choice for Putnam County, is a minimum 60-day trial program. So it changes their mind. They start putting weight back on. They're a total different person leaving than when they came in. Thank you.
Mr. Ball, do you have a response?
Not only that program, but the state federal program, or the state funded program that Steve worked on, and there's some programs, but the future is what's important to me also. One of the things that I want to see the use for recidivism is twofold. At the arrest scene, I've worked with a couple of the recovery programs and the leaders that do those, and have some sidebar conversations with them. And they'll give you a fairly high percentage that of a user, not the dealers. If we arrest drug dealers, it's a good story and we can put their photo on there. But the users that get picked up, the felony syringe, the different things, possession of, if we keep them out of the social media aspect of it, if we keep them out of the social media aspect of it, they have a higher chance of not repeating their offense. So I want to make sure that we work on stuff like that and continue to bring in any kind of recovery programs. Even the time that they're there, I had a young man reach out to me on social media that looked for a skills-based program also, not just talk. So.
Okay, I'm gonna try to go quick here because I was the jail commander, so I actually did a survey form with the inmates of what they wanted in there. GED, MRT were two of the big things, and while we were waiting to get the MRT and the instructors, could do that on my watch, is I created a program called My Steps. And I graduated over 200 inmates through that program. Everybody has a bad day, and some of them come there are really good people, but just have had a bad day. And I've got some people that actually are here who graduated my program, who are living examples, got out. Young lady back, I'm so proud of her. She's got her bachelor's degree now, not been clean and sober. How long?
6 years in August.
6 years August. She went through my program, but they quit having me teach the program. And I want to get it back in there. Sheriff, My Steps program will be back in the jail. We do the Bible study classes, we do the recovery raw. Eric Rippey's a good friend of mine and stuff. But we've got to get the My Steps program back in the jail, design that, and it taught them, make the rest of your life the best of your life, and you had it changed around, and living proof.
That was good.
I don't want to offend anybody. I saw two other hands. Gentleman back here, real quick, please.
Listen to you guys talk about the drugs. I've only lived out here 6 years, but what deputies I've talked to, what you see on the Facebook page, there's a lot of meth and a lot of drug arrests. Has any one of you been on the task force? And if you are elected sheriff, will you allow deputies to be on the task force?
Not necessarily task force related, interdiction related.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, we've had a team over the years. We had a task force many years ago. I was not on it. We had a deputy assigned. Here's the problem with a task force: if it's a multi-county agency task force, is most of the time you're just losing a guy to another county. And it's not that it's not helping somewhere, but we want somebody that's helping Putnam County in this
They
community.
don't have one. I don't know that. They don't have one that, like in Hendricks or Marion or.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I am all for being proactive. I've done it my entire career. Drug enforcement's been my passion. Will continue to be. If there's some type of agreement we can get in with in-county agencies where it's going to benefit all citizens of Putnam County, I would entertain that. But to TDY somebody in another county and they're just gone, I'm sorry, I get it's helping American people, but it's not helping people in Putnam County.
So I've not been on a task force, but I supervised for several years an officer that was on the Peru task force. I helped them with their investigations along the way the process works with task force, so I have some experience with it there. But what I have the most experience with, though, is working with prosecutors, and especially working a 17-county district and finding out what they want. So I've seen successful task force, and I've seen task force that fail. So that's the cool thing about working in a large area, is you get to see the failures and what actually works. And what actually works is a prosecutor-led task force, so I would like to see it. I agree with him that it should be in county, and we can do that. We definitely can do that. There's some very competent people in all agencies that would combine their effort. But what you have to do is you have to be able to work with all these different agencies, and that's something that I bring to the table. Being in a small agency of only 80 officers in the whole state, working 92 counties, I've learned to work very good with other agencies, and that's what will make this task force work and be successful here in Putnam County.
Any comments, Mr. Hibbler?
Yes. What we're looking at is a crime task force, because it's not just the drugs. You'll find there's other things. The stealing the catalytic converters. They convert that to cash to go pay for the drugs, right? So what I want to see when I talk about a crime task force is to work with the other agencies in the county. Cloverdale, Bainbridge, Roachdale. Get all the agencies working together. Greencastle PD. Right now, what we've been doing in Cloverdale is working with the Indiana State Police Mr. Bookwalter had us come in. We put together a group. I've actually got an undercover officer who has 30-plus years that's actually been working for us, and we've been having great success with. So it's those kind of things and different initiatives that we've got out there, and find what tools and resources are going to work. We want the drugs off the street as bad as the citizens want the drugs off the street, but we got to be proactive in going and doing it.
I think I saw one more. Are we done?
I had a question, but I don't know, I mean, I can ask it or not. It was kind of tagging along with our first question, our first gentleman.
Okay.
So, I'm not sure, do we have a second or no?
Well, because you're the last one, go ahead.
Okay,
I wanted
so
to-
most of you know me, but anyway, so I'm gonna tag off his first question about your relationship with the prosecutor's office. So holding criminals accountable for their actions through successful prosecution to the conviction requires a level of cooperation with the prosecutor's office that a lot of people don't realize. So specifically, more so than what you addressed with his question, what are you gonna do to assure the best working relationship between your actual deputies and the prosecutor's office? So we know that each of you have indicated your willingness to talk with the prosecutor and have a good working relationship, but what are you gonna do specifically to assure that your deputies have that level of communication that will assure the best prosecution and conviction of these cases?
Great question. I would start by saying I think it's a two-way street. Obviously, we need to, I get a prosecutor's busy. There are deputy prosecutors, obviously, and I think there's no roadblocks as far as that's concerned in Putnam County. If our guys call to speak to a prosecutor about a case, it's typically not the prosecutor. So I think the relationship is fine with deputy prosecutors. I'm not saying it's not fine with the prosecutor. I'm just saying I think we need to open up some areas where, whether it's monthly meetings with the staff at his office, we'll let him decide how he wants to do that. All I'm saying is, to answer your question, how do we ensure that is communication with the prosecutor. Thank you.
One of the things that we talk about in tactical world is left of bang, what happens before the incident. And in law enforcement, one of the things that you have to do is get, when it comes to a prosecutor and charges filed and or if the case was done properly, that's their thing. They're going to tell you did it wrong, kind of thing. I want to bring in the prosecutor's office and get left of the arrest, right? So right now what we have is, and I've been at a couple of prosecutor updates where the prosecutor gets up there and goes, these 3 cases were bad and here's why. Well, that's right of bang, right? So then we had the problem. What I'm interested in is getting them in there, getting them in an aspect of training. One of the things that, and it's like a marriage relationship. I mentioned this before, and being married to that woman back here for 27 years, it's about communications. It really is. Before the issue or before the incident. And not only will we do this, open up or have more meetings, those are terrible, right? Because you're looking, when can I leave? I want to get them involved in the training, and I want to make sure that our agency continues to train them. Like we have with firearms, I've trained the investigator for the prosecutor's office. Well, while I'm out there training her, I get to know her and get to have a relationship with her that then continues to criminal cases.
Okay, Mr. Hibbler,
Yeah.
last one.
Well, listen, I'll tell you, we've got that. At Cloverdale right now, we train our officers on a particular format, the way that the prosecutor and deputy prosecutors want the cases presented to them. So we've kind of established that relationship early on. He was talking about doing it beforehand, and that's how we've done it. And we've been very successful with the amount of with the cases we've been turning in there and getting good positive feedback on them. The deputy prosecutors in Putnam County are great. I mean, Austin Malaire, Justin, Jim Hens, they'll answer the phone calls, they'll take the calls, and they'll answer the questions. And I've got some veteran officers, but I've also got some very new young officers who are go-getters. And we've got a pretty good open communication. They've all got each other's cell phone numbers. They talk. Last week I called Tim up myself from the scene and was getting, feedback from him directly on how we're proceeding. So we're there. I want to bring that onto the sheriff's department and make sure. I think all the officers, I see Randy in the back of the room, they've all got great relationship with the prosecutors and deputy prosecutors.
Okay. we're going to go into closing statements. I just want to say first, and I think I speak for everybody, it's been a good time with you guys. I've learned a lot. I know Dwight a little bit from some inner things out here, but I've never met either one of the other two. We've learned a lot about you. And hopefully the questions that we've asked and your responses you've been comfortable with. I appreciate those questions we got out here. So we're going to go into closing statements. You have 2 minutes basically, and we'll call it a night. So Dwight?
Thank you. Can't believe it's been an hour and 15 minutes already. It flew right by. So in my 24 years with the Sheriff's Office, I feel like I've learned an immense amount of knowledge. Things that you're not going to learn in a classroom. No degree is going to give it to you. And it's something that I wouldn't trade for the world. I've loved every minute of being a deputy. I'm glad I picked this occupation, and I'm extremely glad this agency picked me. So there's a lot of moving parts to this agency. We are not just a police department. There's so much more that's involved with it. I feel like it's almost second nature that I go in every day and just know how things operate. Although I'm endorsed by Sheriff Stockton, who's going out of office for this, I want to stress that I'm running on my name, my accomplishments, and my experience, and I feel that I know how to navigate this agency through the next 4 years, and I would appreciate your vote on May 3rd. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for your time. I hope to have earned your vote tonight. And I want to talk a little bit more about the future of Putnam County Sheriff's Department. One of the things that I have distilled down, growing up in a law enforcement family, my cousins retired from it, and being around it all my 27 years as a police officer, is I believe that the sheriff of Putnam County needs to be two things, because it's different than other jobs, let alone even in executive police work. But the sheriff of Putnam County, being born here, raised here, and watching good ones and some that weren't so good, I believe it comes down to two things. The sheriff of Putnam County has to be trustworthy, and they have to be responsive to the citizens of Putnam County. It's the only elected leadership in law enforcement in the whole country. Everybody else is appointed. You dance to the music of the citizens as sheriff, period. You have to be responsive to them. I hope to have earned your trust in my 27 years living here. My entire law enforcement career has been spent in Putnam County. What I did off duty was I became very active in my community, building programs, taking leadership roles, and working with people throughout the county to get things done. On the website, I got 4 initiatives that I think you should go look at. I have programs ready to put them in place. Grant funding, none of them I have to buy tanks or go increase the budget to do things. No, you just move things around and find these grants. But I have 4 initiatives on there. One of them is a mental health crisis team. This isn't a helicopter or an ambulance or anything like that. It's putting the deputies with mental health professionals, getting the training and being responsive out on the scene instead of waiting at the hospital to make it happen. The community connections, I mentioned it before. Between an SRO, that's another issue that I'm going to work with. But the community connections is putting deputies out in the public, being connected to their community. I appreciate your time, and I hope to have earned your vote.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, when I started this 18 months ago, I had four bullet points that I talked about. I want to talk about. Number 1 is U.S. Constitution. And some people asking back there about the Constitution. I've taught the Constitution. I taught it when I was in Ball State to 93 new lieutenants that I commissioned to send out to the Army. But I believe in the Constitution. I teach the Constitution. I want to make sure our officers follow the Constitution. I know in Cloverdale right now, every January, my officers have to take a refresher course on the U.S. Constitution. So I promise you this, I'll teach and I'll work with the citizens out here to create more of these active citizen classes I've been doing. Secondly is community policing. It's about reaching out to the community. None of us are as smart as all of us together. And I'll be a sheriff that'll be out throughout the county. You won't just see me during the campaign time and I stay in the jail the rest of the time. I'll be out. That's how I am in Cloverdale right now. You're not going to find me in my office. I'm out on the streets. I'm out talking to business owners. I'm out talking to citizens. And that's what we've been successful with what we've done down there. I also want to be communicating with the fire departments, EMTs, the business owners out here, the farmers out here, the clergy out here. We need to be talking, finding out better ways to do things, okay? The SRO, we've had an SRO for 3 years in Cloverdale School. It's been very effective. School now wants another SRO in the school, and we're trying to figure out how we're going to be able to get that accomplished. The jail programs we talked about. We've had success with those programs. We want to build those programs up, because I had a works program or a jobs program I didn't get to a minute ago, because then we link them up when they got out of the jail to actually have jobs. I actually took one of them today and got him a job, picked him up to the courthouse, and I had him a job by the time I got him to Cloverdale. Okay? So we've got to be able to do that through the community policing, proactive enforcement, getting out here, finding where the problems are in your communities, whether it's traffic, criminal, or quality of life issues, and come up with solutions for those. And then being a good fiscal manager for the taxpayers' resources. You know, make sure we spend your hard-earned money the right way. And so I hope I earned your vote on May 3rd. Thank you.
I was asked before the meeting if any of the campaign managers could hand out paraphernalia stuff for you to take home with you. And I said, sure. So whoever has some, you can take it as you go out the door.
Good job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.